hearing, but Senator Walk has another engagement, but she'll be here shortly. We're going to start off with the Transportation Agency overview, and you folks could come on up and give us the agency overview, the transportation plan, analyst, and agency.
Do you think we should call roll first?
Oh, yeah, let's get the roll. Yes, Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Wolk, Senator Nielsen.
Here.
Senator Pavley. Here.
Okay. Would you proceed with the overview?
Sure.
Analyst.
Mr. Vice Chair and Senator Pavley, thank you for having us here today. I'm Brian Annis. I'm the Undersecretary for the State Transportation Agency. I believe the first item for us to on the discussion part of the agenda is dealing with the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program. So I'll go ahead and present that item for you. I'm also, while I do that, I'm going to ask if the sergeant could pass out some information. We have some descriptions of this Transit Intercity Rail Program for what was awarded in the 2015 funding cycle, and the application deadline for the 2016 funding cycle was just last week. So we've put together a summary of those applications we received last week.
The larger document is the ones that have been received thus far?
That's correct. And I believe as you look through these documents, you'll see that they provide some good illustrations of what the statutory direction of this program is, and also the broader vision for transit modernization and integration. Statute does require that the Transportation Agency select transformative capital projects for this program that decrease greenhouse gas emissions, increase transit ridership, integrate transit service of multiple operators, and improve safety. Additionally, the law requires that at least 25% of program dollars benefit disadvantaged communities. In practice, 95% of project funding in round one benefited disadvantaged communities. The broader vision for transit integration can be illustrated by the map on the back of the 2015 project list, which looks like this.
Matt, get my glasses from Mary.
It shows the high-speed rail phase one system and the transit systems that received the program funding in 2015. This map shows a connected network of transit systems that in the future will become cost-effective and time-effective travel options, or the most cost-effective and time-effective travel options for an increasing share of trips.
This is the new routing to Shafter, or?
What's shown here is the phase one system of high-speed rail on the purple line. So that phase one, actually Prop 1A defines as going from San Francisco down to Los Angeles, Anaheim. Transit ridership has not grown dramatically in recent decades, but there are several factors that point to significant growth of transit ridership in the future. New technologies such as smartphones make it easier to plan transit trips and transition across multiple transit systems. New complementary services such as bike share, car share, and transportation network companies make first mile, last mile transit connections more convenient. Increased housing and business placement near major transit stations improve the attractiveness of transit trips for more people. And finally, new investments in transit infrastructure expand transit systems to connect to multiple transit operators and bring quality transit to new communities. As noted in the agenda, SB 9 was enacted last year and calls for transformative capital projects. The governor's budget proposes additional funding for the program to better accomplish that statutory goal and to allow the state to partner on larger and more impactful projects. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm joined here today by the Deputy Secretary for Budget and Fiscal Affairs, Russia Chavez. I was involved last year in this evaluation of the projects for the program, and Russia's here, and she's able to answer any questions you might have on the broader budget and spending for the Office of the Secretary.
Just to be parochial for a minute, I apologize for that, but maybe you could walk me through. I see the LA Metropolitan Transit Authority. I'm talking about LA and Ventura counties. What projects that you have highlighted are on that list?
Sure, I believe you're looking at the 2015 project list.
I am.
The award that I'm thinking of in that area was for the Lausanne service, the Amtrak service down there, and that was a joint award that the Amtrak service was sharing with 12 transit agencies. That's number 4 on the list, to integrate their ticketing where an Amtrak ticket could be used for the bus or the connecting service in 12
At
cities.
Union Station.
Well, Union Station and beyond. I believe there were 12 cities along the alignment. And the other related project was the funding of Metrolink trains. And there was a net gain of trains, I believe, of 2 train sets to expand Metrolink service for all the cities and areas that Metrolink serves in the South.
Thank you.
How reliable do you feel the cap and trade source is going to be? You know, there's a big question mark after 2020, and you're basing a lot on cap and trade in this program.
Sure. Well, maybe I'll speak to this particular funding round and what we're estimating is available through those auctions. The auctions currently are tracking to bring in a total of about $2.4 billion in this fiscal year. That's the number built into the governor's budget in this fiscal year for planned expenditures. Of course, there's some variability in auctions. Next year, the budget assumes the overall proceeds for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund are $2 billion. So that's what's built into the budget assumption for 16-17. This program receives 10% of those proceeds, so we've built those same numbers into the assumption of funding for this round of projects. I know there's been broader discussion in other subcommittee hearings about cap and trade as you go into further years out into 2020 and beyond. This program, of course, was amended by SB 9 last year, and that directs us to do a 5-year program in 2018 that will, of course, go beyond the 2020 fiscal year for the program.
When I read through this, I made a note, and I wasn't trying to be funny or facetious, but my observation was maybe we're getting the trolley ahead of the train with these connectivities, but we don't know where the train's going. I mean, even the pathway has changed recently. And are we getting a little ahead of things here with the connectivities?
Well, I would suggest these projects have a lot of utility, a lot of benefit. They have a lot of current benefit for the commuters that are traveling on these systems daily to get to work or other activities. The other factor that statute requires us to look at is connectivity among transit operators. So where these services are connecting to a major transit station, perhaps a bus provider that has a Union Station stop or other light rail that might go through a station that includes Metrolink. Those are the types of projects that tended to do well in the first round of the project selection, and also, I think, meet the statutory direction. So they really argue both. There's a lot of benefit in this selection today, but when high-speed rail's implemented, there'll be great benefit for the interregional travel as people will be able to move from urban to commuter to interregional transportation that's fast and convenient.
Do you look at these as standalone projects then, or interconnected projects long term?
Well, I'd say both. Where statute directs us as one primary factor to look at integration of different transit providers. So the thought there is if you had a transit line that didn't connect to any other transit line, the benefit would accrue perhaps to that service, but you don't have a co-benefit you would where you have a connection. Where you have a connection, a portion of those riders will board the other transit operator, and so you'll have a greater ridership gain or ridership shift from those connected services.
Okay,
I had one.
please.
Maybe it's more of a commentary. I know that the primary source of monies have been from what we call above the line, the 60% that's continuously appropriated. That seems to be expanding over time. It's continuously appropriated, but if the auction revenue increases, they continue to get a greater share every year based on that. I'm having a philosophical problem because of competing priorities with not only having above the line that's continuously appropriated, but an additional $400 million below the line. There is only 40% left of the pot for all these worthwhile projects, whether it's energy efficiency. I'm a huge supporter of alternative fuels that are cleaner. There's been nothing done really in the land use area on whether it's preserving wetlands or any other projects. So I personally don't think that is a good idea to have categories above and below the line. Above was signed off on 60%. Of course, it could be changed by the legislature at any time, and it's a growing pot. Above the line is high-speed rail, the transit-oriented development. There's a theme here. It's sort of been the transit money up above. But down below were all these other projects that legislators and their constituents are very interested in regardless of where they live. And so I'm still going to have a problem with an additional $400 million going down below. Not that transit isn't worthwhile, but there's limited source of funds for reducing greenhouse gas emissions that have to be carefully appropriated to all these different priorities. A lot of them have to do with carbon sequestration or ramping up renewables or energy efficiency to meet the governor's 50% targets by 2030. A lot of this money should be going to energy efficiency and renewables, or we'll never reach that target, let alone reducing petroleum through executive order by 2030. So I know it's competitive monies with a lot of interest groups also wanting a chance to show that they can reduce greenhouse gas emissions as well.
Well, just scanning your list, and thank you for providing it, but by my cursory review, there are an awful lot of areas of the state that are not benefiting from an awful lot of this, well, from any of this money. And it's kind of hard to convince constituents that some of us represent that this is a good investment. What are we to tell, folks in other parts of the state? Eastern California, for example, or Northern California, not the coast. Why is this a good investment for them?
Well, and we do hope as the program continues, we see more and more applications from rural areas or other areas that might have transformational, or I guess the law uses the word transformative projects of a different type. And so in some of the rural areas, there may be communities that want to purchase zero-emission buses or other technology that's transformative for the area, but may or may not have all the connectivity benefits that you get in the urban area. But perhaps those communities have a Greyhound service that goes through them, or other areas where you can articulate some connectivity benefits as well.
Okay. Ledge analyst, can you offer some observations? We'd like to have finance talk too.
Well, we would like to highlight the staff comments on the fact that the additional $400 million is part of the broader cap and trade spending package adopted by the Senate, and that we would recommend that there be appropriate oversight and accountability on those projects to make sure that the priorities of the legislature are being met by the administrative projects that these funds are going to.
Would that require a yearly review of the legislature or a report, or what would be the best kind of oversight that could be occurred in the legislature?
Well, I think that would have to be determined by the legislature and ARB, and taking a closer look at the departments that are facilitating these programs. I can't comment right now whether that be annual or every other year, but it would have, it should be provided to the legislature at some point.
Indeed, I think that would be should be a priority this budget year as we proceed with the proposal to incorporate, stringent oversight. Such things tend to get out of control. We've seen that happen in many areas that I'll not recite, but this is particularly a big investment, and so we are going to have to be careful. Anything else, analysts? Anything else that you'd have to offer?
No, that's all of our comments on this item.
Okay. Finance?
We'd just like to add that the $400 million that is associated with the additional $400 million over and above the $200 million that is established through the continuous appropriation, is associated with the overall transportation proposal. So you talk about the benefits to the different regions. I mean, when we were trying to put together the overall plan, that this is part of providing, statewide benefits. So, it's being, looked at individually here, but it's part of an entire overall plan of spending.
In terms of the overall plan, what is finance confidence in terms of the long-term extending beyond 2020?
I mean, as far as
extending beyond 2020, cap and trade revenues.
I mean, my understanding is that we believe that that will eventually be the direction that we'll be going.
But that's not money in the bank.
You mean as far as the money itself? I mean, we're confident that as the program extends beyond the 2020 time period, that the revenue, because it's a combination of the revenue, the price of the credits and the availability of the credits, and that the combination of the two, there's no reason to believe that there would be less, that the revenue that those would generate would be less versus more. So at this point, we're going with a decent level of confidence that that revenue estimate is within the ballpark.
And what indicia you have of private investing interest? Is it rising, the same? What's private investment opportunities?
As far as for the high-speed rail, that probably better addressed with I don't know if there's high-speed rail here to.
Sure. I believe, as the draft business plan calls out, belief that when you have the initial segment, the valley-to-valley segment that's proposed there from San Jose to northern Bakersfield area, that having service up and running will help bring in that private investment to help continue construction to the south.
As in build it, they will invest.
Well, when what you'll have at that point is you'll have a system that's operating, you'll have ridership information, you'll have revenue information. So those type of things are beneficial where you're looking for investment because you have some proven information.
Well, what was represented to me year before last in Budget Committee is that the authority felt that ridership would be able to pay operating expenses. I guess that was their projection at the time. And my question was, that's good, but there's no freight going to be hauled, and it's only going to be passengers, and Amtrak shows us that this is going to, would require subsidies if we go by their model. And then I was wondering what's going to attract investment. If ridership can't do it, it'll pay the operating. I get that, but this is going to cost a lot more than just the operating expenses. So where's our confidence?
Right. Well, I think you mentioned Amtrak. The Northeast Corridor is an example. You have slightly higher speed service there, and that service, I believe, does support the operating costs. Clearly, when they're looking to add additional track and so forth, that's a cost outside of that operating cost. But here, where you have a full high-speed rail system, all the analysis that's been done on ridership and revenue suggests that you would be able to cover the operating cost as Prop 1A requires, but then beyond that, have some additional revenue.
All right. Senator Pavley, do you have any other additional questions?
No, I was just reading back on SB 9 because I was thinking, why didn't I catch that? Well, it didn't mention where the money was coming from, so I assumed it was from on top of the line, setting out a part of that money for a definition of transformative projects as opposed to one maybe spreading out the money everywhere that didn't bring major changes. And so that's a cautionary note on, it was a good concept, but it didn't say additional $400 million would be taken from cap and trade money that prevents other projects from moving forward.
Well, that's a shared concern here at this point, and, that it is an awful lot of money, and as the analysts suggest, oversight, that is going to be a concern. And
we're
constant-
leaving that open, so I'm
yeah,
fine.
the item's going to remain open, so, but I would hope that when we have closure in the budget this year, that a number of these items are tied up in a very, I don't want to say tight knot, but that there's accountability and responsibility, and that the public can feel comfortable with what is done and the oversight. Okay? All right, we'll move on. Our next item will be the CTC Monday.
Page 15.
Pardon?
Page 15.
Yeah, let me get to the page here. The active transportation oversight, and this is information only item.